It's been 3 weeks since the DJI Osmo Pocket came out, and to be honest, I've been pretty skeptical of it since its release. However, I've now had those 3 weeks to play with it, and I had the opportunity to use this as basically my main camera for CES 2019. So how is it holding up after 3 weeks of solid use? Well, it's complicated. So let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So for those that don't know, the DJI Osmo Pocket is a small 4K capable camera with a built-in gimbal released by the juggernauts of the flying cameras, DJI. Now, like I've mentioned in every other previous video, I'm actually a pretty big fan of what DJI does. I like their gimbals, cameras, drones. There isn't much that they release that I do not immediately buy. Now, the plan is to keep this video relatively compact, but if this is your first video about the Osmo Pocket, let's cover some quick specs to give you just a brief overview, but if you do want to see some more detailed videos, I'll leave a link to my playlist in the description below. The Osmo Pocket is a continuation of DJI's family of integrated cameras and gimbals. It's not like the Osmo Mobile line that stabilizes cell phones, but it's also not as beefy as its Ronin line, which is meant for bigger cameras. Let's see if I get it right this time. It comes with a 1/2.3-inch CMOS sensor with a 12 megapixel equivalent camera. The camera itself comes with an 80-degree field of view, which should give you a 26mm focal distance on a 35mm full-frame sensor. The aperture this camera is rocking comes in at a... it's okay, f2. It can record 4K in up to 60 frames per second and 1080p in up to 120 frames per second, with its max video bitrate being a reported 100 megabits per second. And last but not least, it comes equipped with an 875 milliamp hour battery with a reported 140 minutes of recording. And you know what? To my method of recording, the video battery life was actually pretty darn good. After a full day of recording just some cool things around CES, I was sitting at a 73% battery life. And that's more than I expected. I mean, I didn't do any like sustained 2-hour shots, but I did like a whole bunch of little shots over the course of 2 days, and 73% battery life. That's incredible. That leaves us with what the Osmo Pocket is, but after 3 weeks, what do I both really like and really don't like about the camera? Let's start off with the positives, because honestly, there's a lot of them. I'm also losing my voice from talking so much after the last 3 days. First off, you can't really talk about the Osmo Pocket without mentioning its size. This thing is tiny, real tiny. From time to time, I like to mention when the size of a product can be so just shocking that well, I turned it on, that you need to go out and try it. So here's another plug. After you watch this video, go to your local electronics store, if you're able to, and hold this thing. It still surprises me today, and I've been messing around with them for almost a month. But while small cameras aren't really that shocking or surprising anymore, being small is cool and all, but there are plenty of small out there. It's really more of how it combines a camera, gimbal, and a screen in this so small package that manages to be smaller than other cameras, and that's what really makes it stand out for size. The size benefit means that while walking around the show, I was able to get smooth shots without needing a full kit. I didn't need to use the tripod I brought. I didn't need to bring out a big gimbal. I didn't even need to bring out the gigantic camera I bought with me, which, hooray, I get to carry around the whole time and never use. And that really surprised me with how well I liked using this thing. I know DJI makes good gimbals. In fact, while wandering around CES for 2 days, I saw more Osmo Pockets than I expected. Like, cell phones were big business for recording stuff, you know, with the audio inputs, connectivity, and multiple cameras like front and back. I definitely saw more Osmo Pockets than big camera rigs for solo content creators. The next real big benefit ties in with the first one, the image quality. Again, when you have these small censored cameras, good image quality can be tough to come by, especially when it comes to indoors or poorly lit situations. But something that's been happening recently that I noticed with the Pixel 3, and now even more so with the Osmo Pocket, these little cameras are starting to have respectable, definitely usable, indoor video quality. Yes, as you see me wandering around in some very poor lit situations like this huge Samsung display, there is absolutely noise going on here, and the highlights look pretty terrible, but when there is even a reasonable amount of light coming in, I got some really great looking images. I mean, look at this ping pong robot play against this other guy. The ping pong robot was amazing, by the way. The image quality is great, and like I said, it can record it up to 4K 60 frames per second, which takes a huge amount of processing power, so it will get warm if you use that for any length of time, but I did want to impress upon how awesome this is in a camera so small. Thirdly on my list of happiness is ease of use. Now, ease of use, or as I call it, fiddliness for bigger cameras, is for me the most important aspect of a camera, hands down. And I know, image quality is king for cameras, right? But if you are an online content creator, I would argue that it's not. Being able to easily get good enough looking image quality is so much better in my opinion than being able to get fantastic image quality that is a pain in the butt or takes a very long time to get. So when you can pull the Osmo Pocket out of your pocket, turn it on, and start getting stabilized moving shots in as little as 5 seconds, that's impressive. To get an equivalent shot with my bigger camera, I would, at minimum, need to set up my tripod, which takes up a lot of room, install the quick release plate on the camera, move the camera to the right position, turn on the camera, get the camera settings dialed in, then hit record. Then, after that, hope that no one hits your tripod, gets in the way while you're setting it up, or you just flat out miss the opportunity / shot. Like, you don't want to miss those / shots. With the Osmo Pocket, I would have been done already and going to get some more snacks because snacks are king. Those are what are king for me. Well, then you have to tear all that camera stuff down. And if you guys didn't know, I love snacks. Like, being able to get to my next snack location, that's a big deal. Not only that, but the face tracking is really easy to get going and works pretty darn well. Even if it loses your face, you just click the power button twice to recenter the camera and it will pick your face right back up. Even if your face is not necessarily in this little box, it will still pick up your face and start tracking, which, I mean, I really like that. Wow, Everyday Dad, that sounds like the perfect camera. Video over, right? We should just go all and get one using your affiliate links in the description, right? I mean, if you want to, don't let me stop you. But there are some significant issues with the Osmo Pocket, and I think one of them is a potential deal breaker depending on how you want to use the camera. So let's just get into the unhappiness, and as far as the storm clouds go, I think the lesser one, but still significant enough to mention, is the non-removable battery. Yes, I did just mention the battery life is great, and yes, while you can charge it in use, with all the terrible notoriety that batteries are getting these days for having iffy life after you've got some cycles on them, I really just wish there was a way to put a new one in myself, not have to worry about the battery, slowly dying in my hands. I could just, okay, hey, we've been using this one for a few months now, let's pop in a new battery, or to be able to cycle through them. Now, that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is something to seriously consider because this is not a cheap camera, mainly because of its niche functionality, especially if you even want one of the accessories for it, the price starts creeping up there. Another not deal breaker, but something that would make this much more usable would be a wider field of view with selectable crop modes. Much like how the GoPro cameras have wide, narrow, linear, and even my favorite, super view, I wish you could pick between them because the standard field of view is fine if you're going to be using the camera to film something other than yourself, but if you want to use this as a vlogging camera or some other kind of similar handheld talking to the camera, other camera that you would call something other than vlogging, that 80-degree field of view is pretty darn tight. I mean, you can get your face, but that's about it. When making videos, people don't just want to see your face. They want to see the context and the environment that face is in. And I guess some faces are more viewable than others, But even then, there is a reason wide-angle lenses are the preferred instead of everybody using a 30mm lens for everything. I like 30mm. We're at like 50 right now, but I wouldn't want to vlog with this because we're like super far away from the camera. But here's the big one. This is the absolute potential deal breaker, especially if you want to use this as a vlogging camera, or heck, if you want to use this without having it attached to the phone. This is the big one, and it's really the saddest thing about this whole camera, and that's the focusing. Yup, you never thought you'd have to worry about autofocus on a tiny camera like this, huh? That's generally regulated to me complaining about Panasonic cameras. That's a joke. For those that don't know me, I actually like Panasonic cameras a lot. The Osmo Pocket has a depth of field, so some of the video is in focus and some of it is out of focus. When this works, it gives you a nice way to isolate your subject, making the video look a little higher quality. Well, the problem is that the Pocket does that, but has a contrast-based autofocus system that has to move in and out of focus a little bit to try to keep the subject nice and crispy. Frankly, the autofocus system on the Osmo Pocket is terrible. It makes some of the footage darn near unusable, and the problem is if you use the camera by itself, there is no real way to tell what is in focus and out of focus. The screen's so small, it's hard to see. I mean, even if you try to tap on the screen, while it makes you feel that it's in focus, you don't actually know until you then go review the footage and you're like, oh crap, that whole shot's useless. I mean, I thought this 3D printer was in focus the whole time, but after reviewing the footage, oh wait, it's not. And it was like right in front of me while having a little box on it. Like, it should have been in focus. Not only that, but what I want to use the Pocket for is mainly as like a second camera to mimic a cameraman, since again, I'm a one-person show. And it works it generally works really well for that. You've seen that footage pretty often over the last few weeks. Because I do like the tracking. I will set this up on my monopod, start the face tracking, and I just leave it to like follow me and be a cameraman. But a disproportionate amount of that footage has to get tossed out immediately because the focus system is so bad. It will constantly warp in and out and makes even the focus hunting on the GH5's original firmware look pretty tame. Now this is crazy obvious and it's incredibly frustrating compared to how well the rest of the camera works. Everything else about this is great except that focusing. The solution to this, if they can change this through firmware, and if you're watching right now DJI, is to allow for an infinity focus option to just have everything in focus. You could keep both methods, you know, autofocus and infinity focus, but for those that want to use the camera without a phone, which is the main way that I want to use this camera because that keeps it as small as possible, this would actually make the camera usable. I feel like what's happened is this is probably the same tech that went into the original Mavic Pro drone, and if you remember, there were some focusing issues with that too, where you had to tap to lock focus. Well, it does the same thing when you have the phone connected, but when you don't have the phone connected, which that's the point, is how small it is, you lose out on a lot of functionality. And as we get into the so what of the video, do I recommend the Osmo Pocket? If you are going to have it attached to your phone so you can ensure things like the focus is correct, or you are willing to work around the lack of mounting options in the standard kit, yeah, that's still a problem, then yes. I was incredibly impressed with the Osmo Pocket when it worked while wandering around CES. I got some really awesome shots that I would have been unable to get otherwise because of how small, compact, and easy to use and how well the gimbal works. But if you just want to use it by itself just like this, or you want to use it as a vlogging camera, no, I absolutely do not recommend it as of early January 2019. With the focus being unreliable, it doesn't matter how good or how easy the image was to get because the overall footage is ruined. Look, I think this is an awesome little portable camera with a lot of potential, but it is far from perfect. If you can work around its flaws, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But as an overall camera package, especially at the price point, I can't really recommend this for everybody. Thanks for watching.